fine.
Thanks.
Hi.
Wow.
Don't get used to it.
Special occasion.
Special occasion. So, Cornerstone, 3 new questions for the board. Okay.
John, just state your name. and-
John Bojack, 8 Knoxon Street, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I've been writing a series of articles about Cornerstone. I'm trying to help people understand the issues involved in the very complex application process. And I'm also learning myself as I go along too. So today I have a question about taxes, for example. There's a letter, for example, that claims that if the Cornerstone project is approved, that it will be paying 500% more in village taxes than presently is paid. And I was wondering if there's any basis to that claim whatsoever.
I want to ask Mr. Egan to answer. The board should not dig into this, but I'll ask Mr. Egan
Yeah.
what you can.
Okay.
You know, I don't know where that figure came from. I haven't seen that, so I don't know if there was a footnote or an asterisk or anything like that.
It was a letter from the developer, actually.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna I'd have to get into their shoes to kind of make up what their thought process was. The only argument that I would think that could be was that by nature, a developed parcel is taxed at a higher assessed value than a vacant land.
So if I tell you that apparently, I guess it's Mr. Blake's, they pays $1,000 in village taxes for that property, would that be outrageous? Do you hear that, son?
For vacant land, I don't know. I don't know how the assessment is based on that, but the village tax assessor on that parcel. I've had it stacked up on vacant land, I don't know.
Okay, and I'm not sure either. I did a preliminary check this afternoon, and I'm not an expert on this, but that's the figure that struck me, but perhaps I'm wrong. It seemed kind of,
It could be a vacant land. It could be that low as vacant land.
It could be?
Vacant and undeveloped.
Okay, all right. All right, so that's one. But related to that too, the tax issue is the issue that's come up here before, which is the request for tax abatements that might come as a result of this project. In fact, the attorney for the project, I think in the very first presentation, said that the application, the developer was going to make an application, which I believe they haven't done yet, from what I can tell. Let me just understand this process. So they go to the Brookhaven, it's their IDA?
Yep.
Okay. And that
Brookhaven Town or Suffolk County, they both have IDAs.
Oh, they both have what?
Yeah.
Oh, they both, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. All right, so let's go to, just going to the Brookhaven.
Yeah.
Okay, make that easier. They're an independent body, they have nothing to do with the village of Patchogue, none of you have any votes on that
Right.
board, they look at the application, they make some kind of decision or grant, is it?
Yeah, it's a decision by their board, yep.
All right, so let's say, for example, for just working purposes, they grant $1 million in abatements to the applicant. That's paid by us, the taxpayers of the village of Patchogue, ultimately. Is that correct? Because
There's no real payment that goes to them, so.
they pay less taxes.
Correct,
Right.
yeah, so what, you know, IDAs are a hot topic among local government, municipality, lawyers especially, because they're, in the state law, you know, the IDAs are kind of controversial. I think of the whole policy of the IDA for why they were created and whether they actually should be taking, as you read the other day, which in Newsday, it was like, this is not how IDAs are supposed to work, that they're supposed to compete against other IDAs to bring a project. And it was reported in Newsday that one company had been wooed by an IDA tax benefit from another area because they had better tax benefits. And I said, that's not how IDAs are supposed to work. They're not supposed to pit other municipalities against other municipalities. But fundamentally, one of the other criticisms that I have, this is just a personal criticism, of the IDA process, is that the state law is drafted that they have the power to waive taxes for any jurisdiction below you, and you have no exception to that. I think that's a fundamental flaw as a local government lawyer. I think that's a fundamental flaw in the state code, that the legislature gave that power to the IDAs. Now, my counterpart on the IDA will argue that they need that to make it most competitive, to bring somebody from, say, Virginia, and woo them to New York for the business and the jobs. You know, they can make up all sorts of reasons for why they have that. But from a local government, from our little perch, it's disturbing to us because the state they can waive that. But that is how the IDA was designed by the state legislature.
Okay, so I grant you the floor process. So, all right, but let's say they get their approval, right?
Yeah.
So then they get waived, they get some, the village property taxes we waived to some extent,
Yes,
correct?
Correct.
School taxes,
correct.
fire district,
All property taxes.
library district? Okay. And it could be 5 years, over 5 years or 10 years?
Correct. They'll negotiate some benefit as to what that is on a scaled up basis. Where it'll be, eventually will be, a glide path to 100%. But
Okay,
it won't be as opposed to, other projects where the next day you get your CO and your taxes turn on 100% based on what your assessed valuation is gonna be.
okay, so that's, I think I understand. Next question. There's a lot of comment up about stopping the project, which I believe, you know, I think that's inconsistent with the history of the planning board, the zoning board, and even this board. But the question here I'd really like to ask is, and ultimately, the planning board, one day soon, July, August, whatever, is gonna send the board here a recommendation. When that recommendation comes to the trustee board, can the trustee board not approve the project if someone felt like it, even though, let's say, the planning board recommended it? Does the board have discretion to stop an application?
So that's a more focused question. I want to be clear about it, because a lot of people are talking about it, so I just want to make sure that I give my answer. Your question was with precision, so I want to make sure I give you my answer for the answer with precision as well. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. So, the property zone E-industrial, right? And everybody talks about E-industrial, all those uses that are permitted in the industrial, which is anything but those nasty things that are put into the code. And one of those sections that talks about residential purposes. So the process goes that E-industrial districts, the following uses are prohibited. Residential purposes of any kind, including all types of dwellings and housing, except when authorized by special permit from the Board of Trustees. So what happens is that under 435-66, that section was 435-25, under 435-66, there is a special permit criteria that's laid out. And this board made a referral to the planning board for its opinion as to granting this special permit. That's why this board's been silent about it, because we have not received the referral.
Right,
And we'll have to have a public hearing on it too.
right.
But we haven't had any testimony from from Cornerstone. The only bits of Cornerstone that we would even know is anecdotal, because we attended the public hearings on our own personal time. I attended, I saw Trustee Devlin there, I saw Trustee Pease there at different times.
Right.
So, this board doesn't have any record before it whatsoever. No presentation from the planning board, no presentation from no referral from the planning board, no presentation from the developer, and no public comment. Except for anecdotal public comment that's come here at public hearing, but no formal public comment as part of the hearing process. So when that referral comes in, this board's gonna have to make a determination on the special permit. And then they'll vote on whether the residential uses on that property would be permitted in that project scope. Because the special permit lays out certain criteria. And that criteria, this board will have to make a determination as to whether, based upon what the planning board's referral is, whether they fulfilled that or not.
Okay, so,
And let me just clarify that one more step too. The reason, people may say, well, wow, that's a lot to go through, that you made the developer do all of that work for that, but the special permit criteria is very specific. And so, you can't say that, we can't say, no one can say, that maybe one day, if there's a, proposal for a mansion there, or some other residential use, that may be permissible in that industrial zone. But again, it's very project specific as to the approval of the special permit. And then if that happens, special permit denies, the project is over. Special permit is granted for residential. That developer, in the regular context that you and I have known the planning board context for decades, now has to go back to the planning board for full site plan and all the way through. And the zoning variances and anything else that it would need. But it has to start with the special permit from this board to allow residential uses in that industrial zone.
okay, so if I was the developer and and my plan now satisfy the requirements of the special permit, even then, could the board then set aside that application and reject it, or is it now obliged to approve the special permit?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I hate to say that the board would turn something down when somebody met all of the criteria, because I don't think that would be fair, and I also don't think that would be sustainable under the law. Because if they didn't meet all of the criteria, not to say that a special permit is ever as of right, but if it does meet all of the criteria, this board's is gonna be pressed to make sure that it really does meet all those criteria.
Okay.
Because you know what will follow next.
Yeah, listen, sure.
Right.
Right.
And so then you have a Supreme Court judge, one person by themselves in a black robe, and she gets to decide whether we did it right or not.
Okay. And my last question is simply, I don't know if you can answer this. I understand that a letter from a group of conservation or ecological groups has arrived in the village expressing their concerns about the Cornerstone project. It's not in the planning board file. Is
They haven't
anyone
had a
aware of
planning
that?
board meeting since then.
Excuse me?
They haven't had a meeting since then.
With the planning board?
Right.
But is there such a letter?
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. I got a letter from the group.
You got a letter from the group? Can we mention who it was from?
I don't have it from the legal, I don't know.
So
It's
is that
an advisory group to the Long Island Estuary.
an advisory group to the Long Island Estuary
Yeah.
group?
Yeah.
And it does express concerns about the project?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. Favor?
Everyone.